Hi, good morning, everybody. It's great that we're all here. Just so everybody knows, I am Tom Cashion. I am the Public Safety Manager for the Golden Rain Foundation. And I want to thank everyone for being here at this incredibly important topic. In California, we have seen devastating fires over the past years. Experts are relating it to many different things, including California's long-term drought, global warming, poor forestry management, and the need for safer practices. In an effort to better educate our residents in Rossmoor and to better prepare for wildfire here, the Golden Rain Foundation CEO Tim O'Keefe has reached out to the PG&E to request they put on a wildfire safety program here in Rossmoor. In February, PG&E reached out to the Golden Rain Foundation wanting to do their revised wild safety program, which we were very happy and excited about. The timing is perfect as fire season is coming, and it is predicted to be even worse this year. Before I introduced our panel and we move on with the show, I wanted to first give our CEO, Tim O'Keefe, a moment to speak to us. Tim?
Thanks, Tom. Good morning, everybody. And just taking a look at the attendance here, I think we're all really pleased at the interest that the Rossmoor community has in these topics. So I first off want to thank PG&E, Contra Costa Fire Protection District, the City of Walnut Creek, the Police Department, Animal Control, all for being here today and talking to us about these important topics. The extraordinary fires in California over the last few years have elevated, I think, everybody's concern about the possibility of fire in and around Rossmoor. Golden Rain Foundation and the Rossmoor Mutuals are committed to the safety preparedness for this community and spend tens of thousands of dollars every year mitigating the risk to the community and encouraging residents to do all they can to be prepared. So I want to take just this opportunity for a moment to remind everybody that Rossmoor's Emergency Preparedness Organization has outstanding resources on their website to assist Rossmoor residents in their planning. You can get there by going to rossmoorepo.org. I'll say it again. It's all one word, rossmoorepo.org, and you can find all kinds of, not sure why that happened. In January of 2020, following a year-long effort, Golden Rain Foundation updated its emergency operations plan to specifically address wildfire and work closely with the fire department, the city, the county, EPO, CERT, and Red Cross to be better prepared in the event that evacuations were required in Rossmoor. In 2018 and 2019, there were 3 wildfires that encroached into Rossmoor immediately adjacent to housing that were caused by wild animals interacting with PG&E equipment. Last year, there were 2 PG&E equipment failures that resulted in minor fires in Rossmoor and half a dozen power outages throughout the year. All of these things have caused understandable concern for Rossmoor residents. PG&E has responded to our concerns by hosting a similar informational event. It was about 2.5 years ago in October of 2018. They also replaced the power pole on Akalani School District property in October 2019 that was the source of multiple fires over the last dozen years. In 2019 and 2020, they replaced about 24 power poles that ran through Rossmoor. They've been diligent about clearing vegetation around their equipment in Rossmoor. They've updated and cleared vegetation around the substation outside of Rossmoor at the top of Stanley Dollar Drive. And they've upgraded recently the gas infrastructure in Rossmoor. We're grateful for PG&E's attention and commitment to the safety of the Rossmoor community. And we're pleased that they've agreed to conduct today's event to demonstrate their ongoing commitment to keeping customers and their communities safe. And with that, let's listen and learn about PG&E's safety programs. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Tim. The Golden Rain Foundation continues to work with not only PG&E, we are working with the Rossmoor Emergency Preparedness Organization, EPO, like Tim just spoke about, City of Walnut Creek's Rossmoor CERT team, the ham radio and CB groups here in Rossmoor, the City of Walnut Creek Police Department, Contra Costa County Fire Protection District, Contra Costa County Animal Services, as well as Red Cross and others, in the event to be better prepared for the myriad of emergencies that could occur in Rossmoor. We do all of this for one goal, and that is to make Rossmoor even safer. I would like to introduce our panel and then hand over the presentation to PG&E. Today we have Deputy City Manager Carla Hansen, Walnut Creek Police Department Lieutenant Anthony Mangini and Sergeant Ryan Hibbs, Contra Costa County Fire Protection District Marshal Chris Bachman, and Contra Costa County Animal Services Lieutenant Alana Weissman. They are all here to answer any questions that may fall into their respected roles that are outside of PG&E's. The PG&E presentation will cover PG&E's commitment to keeping their customers and communities safe, an overview of the wildfire safety and customer support program efforts in Contra Costa County, key initiatives PG&E is focused on to help reduce wildfire risks, such as enhanced vegetation management and system hardening, information about PG&E's public safety power shutoff, the PSPS programs, and available resources before, during, and after these events. Additional resources available to help customers and communities stay safe during PSPS events or other emergencies will also be covered. We hope at the end of this presentation, you all will be better educated and Rossmoor will be safer. Shall we get started? Vic, can you take it from here?
Happy to, Tom. So thank you and Tim for that wonderful introduction. Thank you to all of you for this time to meet with us today and discuss our community wildfire safety program. So today we want to talk about what we are doing to reduce the threat of wildfire in the greater Rossmoor community, the surrounding area and system-wide, and opportunities for us to work together as we've been doing, such as what Tim has spoken about in the last few years. We do listen, but we also want to work together to improve our public safety power shutoff program. But on the call, let me introduce the esteemed panelists on the call from the PG&E team. These are our senior leaders here in PG&E, and we have Les Putnam, who is our senior public safety specialist. We have Matt McLane, who's our supervisor and vegetation program manager for Bay Region. We have Adrian Gardner, the division operations specialist, and the PG&E representative to Rossmoor. Right? And myself, I'm Vic Baker, senior manager of local customer experience for Diablo, Sonoma, North Bay divisions. Next slide. So Matt G is going to be operating our slides as we go forth. So thank you, Matt, for doing that. So if you haven't already, please take a moment to survey your current location, identify at least 2 emergency exit routes at this moment. In the event of an earthquake, please drop to the ground and cover and hold. Cover your head and your neck. And if you are in danger, please notify emergency services immediately. We would also like to encourage you all to take all necessary COVID-19 safety precautions, including wearing your facial coverings. Continue to do that. Maintain your distances of 6 feet and from others when possible. And of course, washing our hands and staying clean more frequently as possible. So next slide. So this one, I'm going to turn it over to one of our panelists, Les Putnam, to talk to our wildfire risk across PG&E service area. Then I'll come back and speak to a few other slides. So take it away, Les.
Thank you, Vic. Good morning, everybody. Appreciate being here and having an opportunity to talk to you about our PG&E wildfire safety program. So I just want to give you a high overview of the things that we are doing to reduce the risk of wildfire across the PG&E territory. We currently have about 5.5 million customers in PG&E territory. We have about 81,000 distribution lines in miles and 18,200 miles of transmission line. Of that, approximately 1/3 of those distribution and transmission lines are in the high fire threat district areas. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that area is and how that relates to Rossmoor in just a minute. Next slide, please. So this is a depiction of the high fire threat district within or around Rossmoor area. The higher fire threat map is devised working with the CPUC and local government authority, as well as CAL FIRE, Cal OES. And the map is updated on a regular basis, and it depicts where the different tiers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 fire threats are within the state of California. And you can see from the view here of Rossmoor the majority, if not all, of Rossmoor is in what we call a Tier 1, the non-colored area. Tier 3 is the red outline on the west side of Rossmoor and also on the east side of Rossmoor, which borders along the Lafayette border and the Walnut Creek San Ramon border. With that being said, there's very little Tier 3 in Rossmoor itself. It's difficult to see with this particular slide, but just below the letter R is a small red section which actually borders and comes into the neighborhood of Rossmoor. Next slide, please. So just to give you again an overview of the community wildfire safety program that we have, a number of things that PG&E has worked on. We've been actually involved in the public safety power shutoff program for about 3 years now. Just a little bit of history. The public safety power shutoff system has been on board and utilized in the southern part of California for many years. Southern Edison and the utility companies down there have been doing this proactively for quite a while to enhance their and reduce their ability towards wildfires. So the things that we're doing to reduce wildfire potential, we are making continuous repairs on our infrastructure. So that includes our poles, our wires, and anything else that might be damaged by high winds or any other type of weather events. We have an enhanced vegetation management program, and Matt will talk more in depth about what that looks like for, in particular, Rossmoor area. We've gone above and beyond our typical vegetation management, and in this year, we're actually able to reduce the vegetation and the threat to the communities over a long term by reducing vegetation. System hardening actually involves the placement of newer poles, of upgraded poles, composite poles, metal poles, the hardening of the wiring by adding insulation, by giving more distance between the wires so we don't get the slapping of wires and the arcing potential from that. And then again, upgrading our system in areas in the Tier 2 and 3 areas in particular. Targeted device replacement has occurred throughout our PG&E territory. That includes work at substations, work in overhead systems. And then, of course, we have the public safety power shutoff program, which also is designed to reduce the potential for fires due to our electrical system. Within the improvement situations, we currently operate 24/7 a wildfire safety operations center. Actually, that name has just recently changed to the HAWK, which is an all-hazard operations center. So we are monitoring all hazards throughout the PG&E territory on a 24-hour basis. And those hazards are being monitored via weather stations throughout our territory. A number of them are in Contra Costa County. We have high-definition cameras, which allow us to see in real life time the actual events occurring, as well as give us detailed information about that event. We have a very extensive meteorology program, which provides us with up-to-date meteorology, which allows us to make decisions on a minute-by-minute basis on our public safety power shutoff system. And then we have a number of field-based wildfire expertise programs, including our SIP program, which is our infrastructure protection teams that are taking field-based evaluations of vegetation and the moisture content within that vegetation. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Matt McLane, and Matt's going to give you an in-depth a view of the vegetation management, particularly within Rossmoor. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, hey, thank you, Les, and just want to make sure everybody can hear me okay. Good morning. My name's Matthew McLane, and I'm an arborist and vegetation program manager with Pacific Gas and Electric Company. And this is my 14th year with the program, but I've been familiar specifically with the overhead electric lines in the Rossmoor community for the last 4 or 5. And I just wanted to join today and say thank you. Also wanted to talk about what's going on with vegetation management in the past and what can go on in the future. You can see in front of you a slide. Thank you, Matt G, for putting the veg management slide for Rossmoor up. Every year, we are going to be inspecting 100% of the overhead electrical lines that are nearby the Rossmoor community, and we have to do it for essentially 100,000 miles of overhead electric power lines every year. But we have to work with customers and communities to manage these trees. We have to listen. And I think that's something that we need to do with Rossmoor. We need to listen to landscape design, emergency preparedness, agencies and fire response. And I'm just really glad that we have this representation on the phone today. A couple of the things that you can see on this graphic are what are our requirements in a tier 1 or low fire threat district, but I can also answer questions about high fire threat districts, which surrounds the Rossmoor community outside. To meet the state standards in high fire threat districts, we need 4 feet of minimum clearance at all times. And we try to go for 12. We try to go bigger. As you guys know, trees grow and vegetation grows. That's one of the constant things that happens with it. Pruning or removing, cutting down more than a million trees annually to maintain clearance from the power lines is something that we do. And it's a very large program. But again, here at PG&E, we want to listen to the Rossmoor needs and concerns specifically so that we can address those. And that takes time. It's a process that is every single year, which means we must visit, discuss, and complete our work annually. We also have to identify dead, dying, or diseased trees. And sometimes that can be obvious, and sometimes it's not obvious. So hiring our arborist inspectors is important, that they're armed with the information and knowledge to identify those potential hazards when they come up. We've done more than that, though. In addition to doing our annual maintenance, reviewing all the trees, every tree that could come in close with our overhead electrical lines in and around Rossmoor, we've proposed some projects, and some of those are completed successfully, and I can talk about those more here. We do have transmission facilities that are large metal towers with large metal conductors that bring power in from other parts of the state to the Rossmoor substation inside or just outside of the Rossmoor community. We also have distribution facilities that kind of go around the outside of Rossmoor, and the trees and vegetation needs to be managed there as well annually. So we've done a couple of things there. In 2019, we did a right-of-way removal project where we discussed with the community of Rossmoor and some of the representation for some of the homeowners associations, and talked about removal of trees in and around some of the tier 3 high fire threat district areas underneath transmission power lines. That's the right-of-way that PG&E needs to manage. And we think that was pretty successful. We removed potentially hazardous vegetation that could create fuel underneath that area, close to the Ptarmigan area, underneath those high voltage transmission lines. And I think for the most part, it was pretty successful. And those are options in the future that we can discuss as well in other areas around the community. The Rossmoor substation itself is, a North American critical electric infrastructure, and hardening that substation required a lot of vegetation management. We opted to protect the substation by removing any vegetation within 30-foot radius around the fence, which included a lot of pine trees, just for added protection. The substation is a major electric facility, and removing the vegetation around that facility was a large endeavor, and that was also completed in 2019. So again, adding another layer to the protection of wildfire around the community of Rossmoor. We also had a very large discussion that spanned many months about the vegetation pole clearing around switch 8334. I'm sure folks on this call are familiar with that pole. It was involved in a fire and wildlife a couple of different occasions. And even though that pole is located in a tier 1 high fire threat district, we opted to do some vegetation management clearing around the pole and replace that equipment with newer, stronger materials that we believe are safer. So Again, another layer of protection that we're going to continue to add. So hearing the concerns from the community members and leaders of the Rossmoor community, acting on it, and then providing the results is something that we wanted to do today. But I also wanted to express that we're going to do more. Every year we have to do the annual compliance, but there are more opportunities for fuel reduction projects, which I think is a good plan and a good idea, but it requires collaboration and communication. I do sincerely appreciate working with Rebecca Putnam, landscape designer with Rossmoor, and also Dennis Bell in the past with emergency preparedness, and Tom, you in the future, about potential ideas to do more, to add layers of more protection around the Rossmoor community with regards to vegetation. So that's what we wanted to present today with vegetation, but we can do more. Can we go to the next slide, please? I wanted to get in depth a little bit more with stronger poles, particularly around that switch on the school district property that we needed to upgrade. It did take some time. There was a design component to that job where we replaced that equipment with safer and stronger materials. It took a while to get it through design, and it also took a while to redo a plan. We had some CPUC requirements for compliance that changed things in the middle of this process, but we did get it done. And now just below the Golden Rain area and on the hillside of the school district property, you'll see a new, stronger hardened pole with composite cross arms, which is a safer material, and also insulated conductors. And I can still see on a photo that was shared with me, we visited the pole just recently to make sure that the vegetation was still suppressed directly underneath the pole, which we feel like it is. And so this is good news. This is stronger equipment, safer, and something that I think is going to be another added layer of protection there. It wasn't easy. You can see here a spider boom crane that was used, a specialty equipment that we needed since it was a steep hillside. And also the requirements that we needed, the design component was difficult. But again, this is another hardening component that we hope adds another layer of protection. And I think that to discuss what we're going to be doing going forward, regular annual patrols. That's always going on. Discussion with the community leaders about what are the needs in an active listening exercise to see what can we do more. And then potential for projects in the future. I think that there are fuel reduction opportunities that PG&E can engage in with buy-in and support from the Rossmoor community, and that's going to be in the future. So that's something I'm interested in doing. So if I'm not creeping around in the bushes outside of the Rossmoor community under the electric power lines, I'd like to be discussing it with you guys as the community leaders. And so I think that's it for this slide. We can move on to the next slide and get through the rest of the presentation. And this is the PSPS impact on Rossmoor. And I think I can speak to this, or I think Vic, if you want to speak to this in brevity about how we're addressing potential public safety power shutoffs impacts on Rossmoor going forward with this map here. Vic, you want to talk about?
Not a problem. Hey, thank you, Matt. And I appreciate that. And Matt talked about the spider and the pole on the school district property. I mean, that came directly from you guys in our last meeting. Right? It was, hey, can you look at this? We didn't have it in our system. We looked at it. We felt it was in danger, so we did what we could do to make that happen. Some of the options we had was helicopter pull in, right? And bring that special piece of equipment from down in San Luis Obispo with one operator. I think they only have two pieces of that equipment in all of the state of California. So you guys are, we were able to do that. And I think the news was out there and many of you are out there. So it was great to meet you and see you and meet the concerns of the community there. And we're going to continue to do that. But with respect to reducing PSPS impacts to Rossmoor, I think we've done a fabulous job. Many of you have not been, we have not been subject to PSPS impacts since 2018. So 2019, 2020, you guys have been pretty good. And that's because we've put in some efforts here to reduce that impact to Rossmoor. So And that included sectionalizing devices and transmission line switching. So we put 2 sectionalized devices at the perimeter of where you see the red on the map there, where it goes from red to no red. We put some sectionalizing devices so that so electricity flows from upstream to downstream. And if in fact there is a PSPS event at the upstream piece of this, of your electricity current, that's where we want to put a sectionalized device in order to prevent a power shutoff for the area there. So, so far so good. There is I can't promise you that that will be the case at all instances, because if we have a transmission level shutdown for our 2 huge 240 kV lines that are coming from Antioch. If we have that, then it's not much we can do, right? But at the distribution level, you guys are doing well, and we're going to try to limit that impact. Right. And let's talk about and then part of the driver of this, of course, is not only our communication, our partnership with Rossmoor, but we understand that we have a high number of medical baseline customers at Rossmoor. We have Rossmoor customers who are on battery power oxygen, life-saving equipment, and that matters to us. And I'll talk a little briefly about what we're doing to expand those opportunities as well to offer battery backups and life-saving equipment. And also not to confuse you with public safety power shutoff, what we experienced last year with the high levels of energy usage and a brownouts that we had throughout the system, right? So those are 2 separate events. We have a fire-induced PSPS event, and then we have an energy usage event. Those are separate, not to be confused. So PG&E Engineering and our control center was able to serve your customers through an electric power line that did not pass through the high fire threat area, and that's how we were able to save you. As always, safety is our most important responsibility. That is why we may need to turn off power to prevent wildfires during any kind of severe weather event. Next slide. But as we talk to medical baseline, PG&E's medical baseline program, I just want to briefly talk to that. Also known as the medical baseline allowance, is an assistance program for residential customers who rely on power for certain medical conditions, just like we mentioned. Customers will be considered based on their medical conditions or their needs and not on income. It's important to understand that. Their medical conditions or their needs, and it's not based on income. So the program includes 2 different types of help. You have a lower rate on your monthly energy bill, and you have an extra notification advance of a PSPS event. That helps you in case we do cut you off, in case there is a PS event that will help you, and we can't sectionalize and we can't do the switching that we need to save Rossmoor. You still have enough notice to make whatever necessary adjustments you need to migrate a potential power outage for your home. If you qualify for medical baseline program, is a full-time, in order to qualify, you need to be a full-time resident in your home, depend on some type of life support equipment, a patient of special heating or an air conditioner need, or someone being treated for a life-threatening illness or compromised immune system. And you can go to pge.com/medical baseline. We'll put that in the chat. pge.com/medical baseline in order to find out if you qualify for the medical baseline program. But if you do that, I'd also offer you the opportunity to really put in your information into in the online system. So we have all your updated contact information. That includes your name, of course, your email address, your phone numbers where you want to be texted and called. That would be helpful for us. So we do everything that we can to notify you. Now, we've experienced coronavirus over the last year. So due to coronavirus, shelter at home guidelines are changing our medical practitioner priorities, and customers can now self-certify their eligibility to enroll in the program. So this is a great opportunity, and all we need is a signature from we used to need a signature from a qualified medical practitioner, and that's not required right now to apply. So I encourage you to do that. Next slide, please. So a series of more tools that we offer for a community wildfire safety program. And our wildfire safety efforts, please visit pge.com/wildfire safety, pge.com/wildfire safety. Everything that I'm talking about today can be seen. You can view it yourself. You can take your leisurely time to go through all that information. Great resource for anything and everything you can possibly need. Other resources we have created to support our customers include our new address alert for PSPS notifications of any location. So maybe you own a multiple home, maybe you have children and you want to know about what's happening at their address. You can actually get address alerts for multiple locations, which is something new that we're offering this year. PG&E resources available for more than 200 in more than 250 languages. Yes, again, we heard you. We understand that we are a very diverse community, and part of that diverse community is showing up and meeting you where you need to be met. And that is, of course, advancing and expanding our language offerings to you. So 250 languages. So I think we should be able to meet most, if not all of your needs. And our weather website to view our current weather conditions. A safety action center, which provides emergency preparedness resources, and our backup power and storage web pages, information on how you can receive backup power systems or incentives for backup power systems. That can be as small as a battery pack for your oxygen tank. We supply those to you free of charge, or if you want to just upgrade your home to with a generator, and we'll provide resources on how to do that. Of course, that wouldn't be free, but what we can do to encourage you and some incentives that we have available for you to upgrade your system if and so forth you want to do that. But again, let me thank Tim. Okay, we've done this several times now. Tim, prior to COVID, Tim meets with Adrian at PG&E on a quarterly basis to talk about all the things that we can do. We hear your concerns. We do everything we can in our system to address those concerns. So I want to thank Tim and Tom for giving us this opportunity yet again to come to you and present what PG&E is doing to meet your needs and to partner with you and listen to you and make sure that we keep you safe and aware and top and one of our priorities in the area. So thank you very much. Next slide is just some information on how you can reach us, some information on the wildfire safety program, the website, the phone number. I encourage you to write that down, save it, keep it in your browser history, save it as a favorite, and visit it as often as you want. But also know that you have us available to you if you need to reach out to us. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Vic, and everybody else from PG&E. It was very informative and helpful, and we'll have all that up on Rossmoor News is going to have it up on channel 28. Again, we're going to broadcast this as well, and then also we'll have that PowerPoint too. If you need more information, you can contact me or PG&E or anybody else on the panel regarding that information. Now it's time for question and answer, and so Carla, I'm going to hand this over to you to take on.
Sure, and thank you to everyone who has submitted questions. I know we have a lot of attendees. It looks about almost 280 folks on this webinar with us. So thank you for being here and thank you for your questions. We have a number of them. I'm going to try to chunk through them in general categories. And I'm going to start with the more PG&E specific questions, given that they just finished their presentation and the information is fresh in our minds. So first question, what happens when a PSPS has been going on for several days or hours and folks, iPad, phone, all of those things are out of battery? How would a resident go about getting information?
So first and foremost, we started, one thing that we tried to do early on, even in 2017, 2018, when we started the PSPS outreach, was encourage every one of us to take ownership of a power outage. So for me in my home, I definitely and my family have been secured for at least a week's worth of battery power in order to charge our phones and keep things, keep somewhat lights on or candles lit. But we've taken ownership of if our power is going to be out for about a week. And we upgrade that on a quarterly basis, sometimes half a year, depending on how often we may experience a power outage. So first and foremost, I encourage you to really load up on your own and do a risk assessment for your own family when it comes to power outage. Secondly, what does PG&E provide? PG&E provides portable backup battery power for our medical baseline individuals. So if you are medical baseline, you need that type of backup battery power, we can provide those resources for you. Hopefully that answers some, if not that question. So I can't give you an estimate on how long the outage is going to be. I know that's a question that we all have, but I can assure you that the majority of the people in our service territory don't even experience a PSPS event. So the chances are very nil, but again, always have a battery backup power for you, because it may not be a fire, it may not be a PSPS event, it may be an earthquake. It may be anything that can take your power out. So I would encourage you to do that.
And just to add on to that answer, the city and PG&E have an agreement to open up Tice Valley Gym in the event of a long-term PSPS power outage, where you would be able to come and charge your phone, all of your electronics. It's also very cool in there if it's hot outside. So that is a community resource center that we've identified in advance with PG&E and can activate that site if necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Les, I saw you unmute. Did you want to add to any of that, or?
No, actually, you hit it spot on with your community resource center, as well as we have portable resource centers that we can put up in various locations depending on where the impact is of the PSPS event. We've had them in Walnut Creek. We've had them in San Ramon. So it just depends on that particular event and where the most impact might be, and we can put those up within a few hours.
Okay, next question deals with the tiered fire danger map that PG&E showed on screen. A couple questions related to this. What is the source of that map? What is the data source of that map? And when was it last updated?
So the source of that map is, go ahead, Les, go right ahead.
Oh, sorry. Okay, Vic, I'll go ahead and take that. So the source of the map comes from a combination of agencies, including the CPUC, Cal OES, Cal Fire, and even the local fire agencies to some extent have some input. It's based on a number of factors, and that would be historical weather conditions, as well as the vegetation in the area. Density of the vegetation is also now included as well. And then terrain, whether it's slope or not. And so all those factors are taken into consideration. They've drawn up the map. To be honest with you, I'm not quite sure how often they update it. And I would think you can go to the website, and I think we had it on our program, but we can put that in the chat as well. And you can look at the CPUC website to look at the current map of the state of California, and I believe it also talks about how it's developed and how it's updated on a regular basis.
Thank you. Next question that I'm reading through here. There was a question about undergrounding wires. Is that something that PG&E is looking at doing in the Rossmoor area?
So this is Vic. So for Rossmoor, most of our wires are undergrounded. Rossmoor is one of our oldest, first communities to underground. With respect to undergrounding system-wide, we have targeted undergrounding as part of our wildfire hardening efforts. But those are very targeted and very, very impacted areas that truly need it, and we prioritize. But for, just to circle back, Rossmoor, the majority of Rossmoor is underground facility.
And a more specific question around PSPS. Vic, you mentioned a sectionalizing device. What is a sectionalizing device?
how best to describe a sectionalizing device. Consider your home and consider the breaker in your home. The electricity comes to the breaker and you open up the box and you can turn off your living room or your kitchen, and it works that same way. So we can turn off segments of our electricity to certain areas. And that keeps the rest of the power on while other areas may be turned off.
Thank you. Next question, a compliment and a question for PG&E. This is a very impressive list of management and mitigation tasks. Which of you or department is accountable for the completion of these tasks since they overlap over multiple agencies?
So we all are, but ultimately for the division, it will fall on myself and my team. But there's not a PG&E person who works here who doesn't take a full ownership and responsibility for making sure that we provide safe and reliable electricity to our residents.
And you may have answered this earlier, but how many PSPS events have affected Rossmoor?
That's a great question. I don't believe we've had an event that affected Rossmoor. Maybe 2018, it might have been one when we started rolling out the program, but since then, I think we've learned how to switch and sectionalize and keep Rossmoor on. Adrienne is not on the call. She would be best to answer that, but I don't believe we've had a PSPS event that affected Rossmoor.
Vic, I would confirm. There was an event. It was scheduled to be a large event. It was one of the very first ones, and back probably around 2018. And I recall that we had lots of discussions about planning for that and so on. And I think what you described at the time was that you had a worker, one of your staff, who came out and actually manually did the switching you've just described and kept the power on in Rossmoor. There were, I think, maybe a couple of dozen homes that were affected. I'm not even sure if it was related to that or not. There might have been another issue at the time. But I can say that through all the PSPS events that PG&E has been managing through, Rossmoor has been kept with lights on. So we really want to express our thanks for that and the effort that you guys have done to make that happen.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Tim.
Next question. Do you have a weather station on one of Rossmoor's high voltage towers on the East Ridge? Can we access the information from that location?
I'll check and get back to you. I don't believe we have any a weather station in Rossmoor. I think the closest one is Mount Diablo. But Les, do you know? Do you know if we have one?
Yeah, actually, we have multiple weather. Excuse me. Are we talking about weather stations or cameras?
Weather stations. Weather stations.
Weather stations. Yeah, we have multiple weather stations in the Contra Costa County area, and I will have to double check the website, and you can access that, and the general public has access to the website and the information at each of those weather stations as they provide the microclimate information at those locations. I believe there's a couple in the Lafayette or Orinda area as well.
Yeah, we'll get back to you on that.
This question is directed to Les. A closer look at the 2021 CPUC fire hazards map shows that these streets, I'm reading this live, apologize. These streets are actually in Tier 3 extreme fire zone. Sakhalin Indian Drive, parts of Gray Eagle Drive, High Eagle Court, Horseman's Canyon, and Autumn. So less of a question, more of a statement, but is there anything you would want to add to that, Les?
No, just to agree that there is a small portion of Rossmoor that is in the Tier 3 area, and also to just be clear that it goes from a Tier 3 to a Tier 1. There is no Tier 2 transition in that area as well. So it's quite a change in a short or small amount of area. So I don't disagree. There is some area, and I'm not exactly sure which streets. I'd have to take a look at our maps on that.
But Les, because those streets are underground and it's being fed from a Tier 1 area, will they experience a PSPS necessarily? Or
No, and again, if they're undergrounded and they're on, depending on which circuit that they're on and where the sectionalizing happens, the likelihood of a PSPS event affecting those streets is low, even though they are in that tier 3 area. So to your point, Vic, it shouldn't be an issue, but again, not having the map in front of me and visualizing what that looks like, we can get back to you for more detailed information on that if we need to.
Yeah. But being in the tier 3, I would encourage you to take as much precaution as you can because, the powers that be, the Cal OSHAs, the CPUC have identified that area as being dangerous. So.
Another question. One of the transformers that caught fire last year was an underground device. Are all such devices inspected and updated?
Yes, I'll take that question. I think they're referring to the incident, the underground incident where it created a fire and damaged the structure. And so all of those facilities are inspected on a regular basis. That particular incident was the actual cause of the event was a fault at the connector for that transformer. It occurred and does occur in our system on occasion, and usually it's because of some stress on the system. On that particular day, it was a high heat event, and that high heat, along with the amount of electricity used in the area, created a stress on the system and thereby caused a failure within that underground system. The downside of that particular location is that it was in and around a structure, and the fire that from that vault spread to the nearby structure. I will say that it's not common, but it does occur depending on the stress within our system.
Next question. Homes in Mutual 1 have had multiple lengthy outages up to 22 hours. According to PG&E workers, this was due to old and inadequate conduit that needs to be replaced, not repaired. When will PG&E replace this equipment?
So we continue to do our maintenance on all the equipment in Contra Costa County, right? So this is part of our ongoing system maintenance and upgrade. So as we experience failures, as we see opportunity for us to get out there and try to catch it ahead of time, we'll do that. But there is no overarching plan to upgrade the entire Rossmoor community at once to do that. So as we experience these failures, we'll do it. And underground, one of the advantages of having above ground is that we can see our failures, see the failures in the lines, see the failures in the poles. Underground is very difficult to just assess and find out where exactly it is. And then to get to it, we got to do one or two things, and that's dig through our conduit to get, or dig through our conduit to get to the circuit, or pull the entire wire out to make that fix. So it's part of the advantage of underground is that it looks pretty, it's great. Part of the disadvantage is it takes longer to repair.
Carla, if I could just ask a question of Les, which is really a follow-up to the one he was just talking about on that unit underground that caught fire. Les, when that was repaired, has that been hardened? Has it been improved? Is it different type of equipment that will be safer, or should we expect a similar failure if a similar condition presents itself, high heat and high low humidity kind of situation?
Yeah, Tim, it's a great question, and I honestly don't have a specific answer to what type of equipment was used to replace that. Obviously, it's newer, so would assume, as anybody would, that it would not occur again. However, that's not an area of my expertise. I'd have to defer that to someone else or get back to you on more details of the type of equipment we install.
So Tim, every piece of our equipment has to meet national standards on before we service it. So we, of course, buy our equipment in bulk, and that a piece of equipment has to pass certain tests in order to qualify for us to install it. We can't say for certain how quality of that piece of equipment is, no different than we can tell how good of a quality that car that came off the assembly line is at that moment. But what we can say is that every piece of equipment that we have installed is a certified piece of equipment that meets every national standard that exists.
Thank you.
So this will be the last question in this section, but we can come back to PG&E questions because I am getting more questions as we're answering them. And then we'll move into the next section of questions. So this question is from Matt at PG&E. As residents on Golden Rain Road, we are grateful that our 5-year effort with GRF and PG&E and extensive TV reporting about repeated fires finally led to PG&E replacing the power pole on Akalani School property. Please describe the specific clearance work and line hardening involving the overhead transmission lines that run westward, south side along Olympic Boulevard from Pleasant Hill Road to Rossmoor Parkway.
I'm going to have to orientate myself. Maybe, Carla, could you read again the direction of the specific request from Pleasant Hill Road to Olympic Boulevard?
These are the overhead transmission lines that run westward on the south side along Olympic Boulevard from Pleasant Hill Road to Rossmoor Parkway.
Okay, and let me just get my map out. So yeah, there's not a transmission facility in that area, but there is distribution power lines in that area. And a lot of the distribution lines are also addressed in an annual maintenance program where we prune and remove vegetation to make sure that we have our clearances for 4 feet minimum conductor clearance if it's high fire threat district, or 18 inches if it's non-high fire threat district. We don't want any vegetation to come in contact with any of those distribution facilities, whether it's rain or storm or wind. We don't have any fuel projects going on right there. We don't have any enhanced vegetation management projects going on in that area, but we are open to it in the future. And if I can pinpoint where this discussion has taken place, I think we can do more. There certainly is an area from Olympic or it's Tice Valley that goes up to switch 8334 that I'm going to be targeting for more robust vegetation management. Also along the ridge, why don't we do this? Matt G with Walnut Creek, can you go back to the slide that shows a map with vegetation management, and maybe I can describe a little bit. Go up and I'll tell you when to stop, okay? Almost there, keep going there. Go back. Keep going, right there. All right. So in this map, you can see yellow lines that are coming from the north and go down into the red area. It's a wooded area, it's a wooded hillside. I think that is future potential for fuel reduction. And I also think that the area north coming from Olympic and right at the corner of Rossmoor Parkway, there is a line that goes from Rossmoor's Community Garden Center. I think it's kind of like outside of Rossmoor, but still Rossmoor residents use that community garden center. There is a power line that's a distribution facility in that area that I feel like is potential for more robust vegetation management. So those are the areas that me personally, as the local representative for vegetation management, will be looking into doing. So I hope that answers the question. The transmission facilities, if I understand the question correctly, they come in from the south, and we did a very large right-of-way clearing project with communication and partnership with Rossmoor community, and but that's closer to Ptarmigan and Ptarmigan Way down in the south area by the substation. So I hope that answers the question as best as possible. If I did not, please write the question again or reword it so that I can pinpoint it or come back to it later.
Thank you. So we'll give PG&E a little breather. Thank you for answering all those questions. And give some other folks on the call. We have representatives from the Walnut Creek Police Department and Fire District, as well as Animal Services and Golden Rain Foundation. So there's a couple of questions that all kind of coalesce together around how would we evacuate Rossmoor in the event of a disaster, whether that's wildfire, an earthquake, whatnot. And so I will start answering this, and then I'm going to look to my partners on this call to chime in as well. So the city, which includes the police department and fire district and Golden Rain Foundation, as well as the county and CAL FIRE, are working together on preparing for disasters citywide in the city, but specifically in Rossmoor, because we do have a high population in Rossmoor, and one ingress and egress out of that area. Starting, I believe, in 2019, we worked with the Golden Rain Foundation as they were developing their emergency operations plan, which included evacuation zones, so that that Rossmoor Golden Rain Foundations knows how they would begin a type of evacuation in Rossmoor, and then partner with the city and police department and fire district on how we would get folks out. So that plan is underway. We've also practiced the city, as well as fire, police, CAL FIRE, in a similar area in the city, Lakewood area, which is a neighborhood that also has a similar one way in, one way out. And that practice really taught us a lot of what we need to do in the event of this. And so using those lessons learned, we're going to apply those to the plan that is in place in Rossmoor, and start doing some internal work between our agencies. And then I know there was a question in the Q&A here about when are we going to do some kind of in-person drill in Rossmoor to practice what we have planned in the event of an emergency. And so we were planning to actually do this last year at the same time, an in-person event. However, COVID-19 kind of put a pin in those, put pause on those plans. And as we are seeing kind of light at the end of the COVID tunnel, we do have plans to do a small drill to practice these plans. So that is kind of an overview. I know that touches a couple of folks' questions, but I will open it to Golden Rain Foundation, our lieutenant and sergeant on the call, as well as our fire marshal, if they wanted to add anything there.
Yeah, Carla, I think you covered it really well. A couple of your points I'd like to highlight. One is that, yes, we are, what we're doing right now is we're strengthening and becoming even more prepared in the eventuality of either smaller evacuations within the community of Rossmoor or large evacuations that include the entire community. But as you're aware, both the fire district and the police department were 24-hour operations. Responding and understanding our community is part of what we're always ready to do. We are aware of your ingress and egress challenges. We're aware of the ambulatory challenges sometimes within your community. We're aware of the transportation resources within Rossmoor. And I did see a question about other emergency exit and access points for Rossmoor. Yes, they do exist. Tom Cashion could probably speak better to exactly where they are, but our officers have toured them. We've sent our officers during their lineups to where your emergency entrances and exits are, in the eventuality that the main thoroughfare is for some reason blocked. I will also skip ahead. Carla, I did happen to notice a question in regard to the ingress and egress and opening lanes of traffic. Yes, of course, at any given time, as needs require, law enforcement and fire will work to change the direction of the roads to allow a better flow of traffic out. Additionally, we'll be mindful to keep a lane in for emergency vehicles to respond in and get help where it's needed. So again, these are things that, yes, are we planning to do more? We are. We're always looking at doing more and improving and being more ready. But are we prepared right now? Yes, we are. This is what we do in first responder, as first responders, both fire and police are prepared to assist Rossmoor should the bad thing happen.
Yeah, if I could talk on the emergency, actually they're called emergency access points, and they're not exits in Rossmoor. We only have one exit and one entrance. That's how we were designed and built back in the 60s. And regarding those are really for emergency vehicles, PG&E and others to get into Rossmoor if there is a backlog into the main entrance. So that's what those are there for. We don't want to advertise those and send people out to those because they're not improved roads. They're not roads that should be traveled on. That would cause more harm to our community if someone was to go up there and thinking that they can get out that way and then get stuck. And then now we're sending emergency vehicles out to them to rescue just one person rather than being able to be used to evacuate the community or different zones. And so, I was reading the comments too about how are we going to get 10,000 people out of here? There's no way we can do that. And there's no way once they get out that the city of Walnut Creek is going to be able to manage 10,000 people leaving. I know everybody's concerned about that. We plan for these events like Lieutenant Mangini talked about, and that's why we created zones within Rossmoor, and that the plan will always be, and this is how it's been in police services and in fire services, you evacuate the closest to the danger, and then you move to the next closest, then you move to the next closest. It's an organized way to evacuate. If there was an event that there was 10,000 people evacuating, that is not an evacuation. That is a mass exodus in trying to save your life. We've talked to fire, we've talked to many, many experts as, could that ever happen here? And obviously the possibility is anything could happen. I'm not going to be ignorant and say that it can't happen. The better question is it likely to happen? And no, it is not likely to happen that there will be an event that we will have to evacuate 10,000 people out of Rossmoor at one moment. And so just to kind of back up a little bit, as you know, I used to be with the Walnut Creek Police Department, and Carla is right. We were planning a live drill here in Rossmoor, April of 2020. I was working with Dennis Bell. We identified a mutual to work with as well. And we were going to start with one mutual first to do that. And this was after we had done the Lakewood drill, because we wanted to make sure we knew what we were doing, that everything was going to work, and that it was safe to do a drill. There's a lot of things that go on in a drill that we have to really pay attention to for the safety of the people who are participating in the drill, those who are not participating in the drill, as well as the emergency services that are involved in the drill. So there's a lot of things that go into this. It's not an easy turn a switch and it happens. Granted, the police department and the fire department in an emergency, I am confident that they will be able to do an evacuation and do it safely and quickly. They train for this, they know what they're doing, and we've demonstrated on many different times, from the evacuation during the pipeline fire. I don't know if anybody remembers that back in the early 2000s. We also did a mass evacuation during huge flooding back in 2005. So we're very familiar with how to do an evacuation. But it doesn't mean, like what Anthony Mangini talked about, is we can always do better, and we always want to do better. And we consistently meet to train on this. And we just met yesterday, which is kind of coincidence here. Many people you see on this call, minus PG&E, we have become the emergency team for Rossmoor and how to handle these kind of emergencies. And we actually discussed timelines for doing another wildfire education campaign through Confire. They do a phenomenal job that they did out at the Lakewood drills. So we're going to bring that here and hopefully have that done here before summer. We also are going to do some tabletop exercises because of COVID. And then eventually our goal is this year is to do a live evacuation drill here in Rossmoor. So that is our plan, and that's what we are focusing on doing. And there's a lot more things that you will see at the end of this. I'll cover a few more. That kind of gives you an idea. Those access points are not evacuation. They're not designed for evacuation. And please just, use our main gate. And that's what it's there for. And we will have other ways to evacuate people safely and orderly. Thank you, Carla.
If I could just add to Tom's point, we like to refer to those access points as our fire trails or our access roads. You're most likely going to meet a bulldozer, or you're going to meet one of our type 3 4x4 fire engines. that's going to be taking a stance up on one of those ridges or putting line in, because that's most likely the direction the fire is going to be coming from. So I just want to reiterate Tom's point of do not access those roads. You will meet fire crews on them. You're probably going to meet a bulldozer, or air support's going to be coming over, dropping retardant on those areas. So, just follow the direction that the police are going to be giving. They're going to be giving evacuation orders, telling you where to go. Just stay calm, just go where you're directed, and they will get you out in a timely manner.
That was very good. And just one other thing is, we've all been talking about, or that we've learned through Paradise and other events, is self-evacuation. If there's a red flag warning that is occurring, you should kind of consider, or you should always have a plan of what are you going to do in a disaster, not just wildfire, but earthquake and all of that. You should have a plan already in place. And that's like what our EPO group here is always sharing with the public, is have a plan. Contact whoever it's going to be, who you're going to go to, make sure your neighbors have a plan. And then, if you don't feel comfortable, you can self-evacuate. You don't need to be told to evacuate. If you're nervous, if you're scared, please self-evacuate beforehand and go to those safe places that you've already planned to go to.
Thank you, everybody. So that addressed a couple of questions. I am seeing a few more around a partner that is very close to us in Walnut Creek and very close to Rossmoor, and that's the city of Lafayette. So there was a question both addressed to the city and you, Tom, around how are we working with the city of Lafayette, given that their borders are, touch Rossmoor, touch city of Walnut Creek borders, as far as fire danger goes, how are we working with them? So I'll let you start and I'll jump in.
Sure. The city of Lafayette, actually their chief of police, was part of the 2019 design and development of Rossmoor's emergency operation plan with the consultants. They were at every meeting and they were a participant and actually weighed in. And then on the final approval, they approved our plans. And just so everybody knows, the Rossmoor emergency operation plan is on our website, rossmoor.com. So if you go there, you will see it and you can review it. It's at the bottom of the page. It's pretty in depth, and I think it turned out really well. There was a lot of people involved in that plan, and they will continue to be part of our efforts of training and moving forward. So it's an ongoing process with them. But not only is it the city of Lafayette that we partner with, we also partner with the county, because our lands also border county lands. And on our call yesterday, Contra Costa County Sheriff's Office, Office of Emergency Services was also part of our group, that team that I told you about earlier. And they'll continue to be part of that group as far as designing both the ways we respond to these evacuations and other kinds of disasters that we will face.
Yeah, thank you, Tom, for mentioning the county. I was going to add on to that. The city approaches emergency preparedness. It's a high priority for the city. And the way you stay prepared is keeping communication lines open between your partners that are very close to you. So whether that's city of Orinda, city of Lafayette, Concord, Pleasant Hill, all of those, our agencies are talking to each other. We're all preparing for this because it's just a necessity now, given that the environment that we're in. So not only in the county as well. So this is, I like to say preparedness, emergency preparedness is really based on those relationships that you have that are ongoing, and you continue to foster those relationships because you absolutely need them in an emergency situation, and we have those in place. So I'm going to shift over to Lieutenant Wiseman to talk through a couple of questions regarding animal services in the event of evacuation. So what is the plan for accommodating animals in evacuation?
Yeah, so the best case scenario is that somebody has their own plan for their own animal. Their animal is going to be most comfortable with the owner wherever they go. If that's not possible and it's not always the case, ideally you have a plan for somebody else to take care of your dog, or you've got a boarding facility or a vet that you feel comfortable. Worst case scenario, we do have CART, which is Contra Costa County Animal Rescue Team. And they can be activated to set up a shelter, an emergency shelter for the animal. Oftentimes these are near where a human shelter will be. That way the owners can come and take care of their animals, but they'll be activated through OES.
Thank you. Any recommendations on how to get prepared with your animals as you're planning your own preparedness and evacuation plan? What's the best way people should plan for their animals? Absolutely.
If you have a cell phone that you carry with you everywhere, I strongly recommend taking a picture of your animal's most recent vaccinations. Anywhere that you go that you take your animal, you're going to need that vaccination record. So if it's on your phone's probably with you. Other than that, always having a collar with tags and updated information on your animals. Always having your animals microchipped and that microchip number up to date. So if your animal does get loose from you during evacuation or while sheltering outside of your home, you can be contacted. It's really important to know what foods your animals eat and what medications they take, and if they're easily accessible or you can keep them somewhere that they'd be easily accessible, to take that with you as you go. Most importantly, for cats are always our sticking point when running out of the house. You pull out the carrier and they disappear. So I strongly recommend beforehand keeping that carrier out in the open, putting treats in it occasionally, making it a good place where a cat is going to want to go rather than when they want to hide. So that when you do leave your house, your cat is in a carrier. So many people come running out with their cats in their arms because they can't get it into a carrier. And sometimes those cats get away. So practice, practice, practice.
I'm sure all of our cats will love that practice as well.
Yes.
Is there any website that you have that you can share with the group that's still on how to access information from your agency? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. Our website, the Contra Costa County Animal Services website, will have some information, but it's best to go to contracostacart.org. They're going to have most of the information for emergency services when it comes to animals in disaster.
Thank you for that. Okay, we're going to shift back to a couple of what I will call general questions around personal generators and are they allowed in Rossmoor? And I think this is around the topic of keeping things charged and ready to go in the case of a PSPS event.
Tom, normally that's a question that Dennis Bell would take, or Paul Donner, but I don't believe Paul is on the call here today. It's my understanding that all the mutuals prohibit generators. So we definitely don't want people to install generators inside their units, and we've had reports of that over this past year. That actually is a significant matter of safety and health. But the resident would have to check with their individual mutual to see whether or not the mutual allows an external generator. And my understanding is most do not allow it.
Thank you. All right, I am going through the last list of questions here to see if there's any we missed. One general housekeeping question that I've seen come up a few times here is, will the presentation be recorded? Yes, it is being recorded right now. And will it be posted somewhere for folks to access at a later time? And it sounds like yes, it will be.
Yes, I'll answer that. It will be. It's going to be uploaded to YouTube tomorrow. And so it will be on the YouTube channel, and then it will be rebroadcasted on Rossmoor's channel 28. So if you missed it, or if you want to see it again, you will be able to.
Great. And if folks still have questions, what is the best place to send those? Where is the best place to send those questions? Is that to you, Tom? Is that to, where would the best place be?
Yes, I think for ease, I think it's best if they all come to me, and then I can go ahead and send them to the appropriate people to be answered. My email is tcashion, and my full name is actually on the screen if you need to see it, but it's CASHION @rossmoor.com. Again, tcashion rossmoor.com. If you want to send me any questions, or if we weren't able to answer the one today, or you want more information, please send me an email and we'll go from there. And then, Carla, do you see the one from East Bay Mud? I thought that was pretty helpful if you want to read that down towards the end. East Bay Mud is actually on this call as well, and they provided some information.
Thank you for that. Yes, I'm seeing that. So I'm going to read it. Quick note from East Bay Municipal Utility District, East Bay Mud. East Bay Mud is prepared for PSPS events in and around Rossmoor and will continue to supply water to the area. Our board just approved a contract for over $2 million to rent more generators for the next 3 fire seasons with the option to extend into the future. In the event of a de-energization, residents may be asked to reduce water consumption to ensure enough water remains in our reservoirs for firefighting. And for any emergency, we encourage everyone to have an emergency water supply. So that's 2 gallons per person per day for 5 to 7 days. And don't forget your pets. And the information that they provided, it's a link. So it's www.ebmud.com /about-us/public safety power shutoffs.
And Vic, could you talk about how residents, or how we can get a copy of today's PowerPoint, and so we'll put it up on our website, or if that's how you want to do it, or if you want residents to contact PG&E directly to get a copy of it?
So as soon as this is over, Adrian will send an email to Tom. Tom, if you can distribute it, that'd be great. It'll be a PDF version of the PowerPoint.
Thank you.
Okay. Tom, do you want to close us out? Do you feel like we're ready?
Yeah, I really want to thank, this was an excellent panel. Thank you everybody for coming. I really appreciate it, and providing your expertise and knowledge and sharing, your eagerness to help Rossmoor. I know our residents appreciate it. I personally appreciate it. And I want to let our residents know this is not a one and done thing. I'm very big on education and training. So you'll see a lot of that from me, especially as we move into fire season. I know our panel, most of the people on our panel, we're already committed to that, as we are all here, and you will see us more in the coming weeks as we move into fire season. And you'll also see more things in the Rossmoor news regarding how to protect yourself and how to protect the community and how to look after each other as we move into this fire season. So please be tuned in and be prepared, and always think about what is your plan going to be. That is the best thing that you can do right now to help yourself, as well as look after your neighbors as we move into this fire season. Again, thank you to everybody who was here. I look forward to doing this again, and everybody take care of each other. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.